Get ready.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of Gullcast. I'm Brennan Hall. I'm the Esports coordinator here at Endicott College, bringing you top line guests every single week on this podcast about the industry. And boy, I feel like these guys need some sort of introduction. I don't know what, because you guys are absolute legends. But I am just esteemed to have these two gentlemen on today. When we talk about brand building, we talk about content creation. These are two of the best locally here that do it, from where they started to where they are now, and it's an honor and a pleasure. Some dear friends of mine here. I'm gonna put it on a T here. Please welcome folks from the COD Casuals podcast, which you guys should be listening every week. Justin Yin and Mike Hargens. Gentlemen, how are we doing today, guys?
Doing great, man. We're happy to be on the pod.
It's the pleasure is all mine. Reunited, and it feels so good, doesn't it? No.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's been a while.
Little bit, guys, little bit. I'll start out with this, guys. Because you're both high school friends from North Attleboro. You guys started this podcast kind of it was a labor of love. Just two guys getting together, talking about what they love. I want to hear your origin story of how you guys started this whole thing and where it's going.
Yeah, well, I'll start really quick, Justin. I think, most people listening probably can relate to this in Call of Duty. They had their group of friends that they would play COD with all the time. And then Justin and I mean, like you said, we're from the same hometown. We've been friends since middle school, and we started playing Call of Duty together. And then as like high school went on, and then, the years go by, the friend group got smaller and smaller with people we play with COD. And then it was just me and Justin, and we never stopped. We just kept loving it. We were always playing together, enjoying it. And then we'd hang out with our friends. Justin and I were always talking about Call of Duty, talking about, when there was rank play, we'd be talking about that. We were just talking about classes, thoughts on the game. And then we were just thinking to ourselves, hanging out one day, being like, dude, why don't we just start a podcast and talk about this stuff? Because we love talking about it, and it's all we talk about. And I'm sure there's other people out there that feel the same way. So you're right. It was a labor of love, just kind of doing it. And it was out of our own passion. It wasn't anything we went into trying to change who we were. We were just going to be like, all right, we're going to talk about COD, and we'll see if people end up enjoying it. And thankfully it has turned out that way. People resonate with the message.
Yeah. And like adding to that, we've been friends for Mike, like over a decade now. Well over a decade.
Yeah, long time now.
Yeah, it's been a long time now.
Jesus.
And we're just two normal guys that like Call of Duty, and feel like as you get older, other responsibilities come up, but a lot of people stopped playing Call of Duty and just video games in general, and slowly dropped off in our friend group. And Mike and I were the lonely soldiers going at it. So we definitely started this because of just passion of the game, and both of us got really into competitive Call of Duty, which we can go into later. But we really started this because, we had a passion for the game, and we wanted to resonate with other people.
Yeah. I can tell you guys firsthand from my experience in marketing that the road of creativity, the road of content is littered with abandoned ideas, half cooked. Hey, this sounds great. And then you lose steam. You guys, I think the most remarkable thing is how you were able to be so consistent every single week. One of the things that I learned early on my years at the Patriots, doing the ESPN Boston polls, is if they can expect a new poll every Monday morning, that's going to do a lot for retention. And I think when people come up with these ideas, it's easy to sit there in a room and think we're going to go beat the world, but to actually set out and do it, ideation and execution are not mutually exclusive. Was there a moment early on in this where you had a discovery of like, okay, we're there's potential here, and if we commit to this week after week, like this is going to continue to grow? Like, was there sort of a eureka moment early in this?
I wonder what you think about this, Justin. I would say it was when we started to get guests on, like when we had Dens from the Boston Breach on for our 100th episode. that was a moment where like I remember we like hugged each other. We were like, "Oh my god, like dude, we just talked to this guy. Like he came on our podcast." Same thing with having T Dog or Tyler with the Boston Breach. Same thing. We had guys like that that knew of us and wanted to actually sit down, and we had a great conversation with them. And they wanted to, come back on the podcast. I think that was a moment for us where we were really like, wow, we're actually doing it. But also too, even from the beginning, just seeing the growth, week after week and like over the course of months. Um, that was also something too. We're like, wow, we're actually doing something, and it's definitely resonating. Just being like you said, consistent. That's the biggest thing for anybody if you're going to be doing anything in life. Is just consistently doing it. But people give up.
Yeah,
It's easy.
and
Life gets in the way, right? So
oh
Exactly.
yeah, it definitely does. And like you said, Mike, going to the beginning of it, we we were happy if one person listened to the episode, let alone, now we have like a couple of hundred people that listen every single week, which is awesome. And we, as soon as we started seeing, 10 people, 20 people, we're like, wow, okay, people actually value our opinion about Call of Duty and other people resonate with how we feel about the game. And Mike and I would watch The Flank, which is a competitive Call of Duty podcast,
oh
and
yeah, with
we
Faye
wanted,
Zuma and all those guys. Yep.
yep, yeah, and we wanted to fill in the gap for like casual Call of Duty players because there are plenty of content creators that talk about Call of Duty and don't play professionally, but there isn't really a podcast that just talks about, seasons and like everyday updates and challenges happening in Call of Duty. And we wanted to try to fill that void and also introduce people into the competitive scene.
What do you guys? I think you ask 100 people this, you get 100 different answers. But as far as measuring success with what you guys do, what is your North Star?
So, Mike, I'll take this one at least from my side, but I guess the easiest answer I would say is numbers, right? And metrics. But uh, I have learned that that isn't the best way to measure success. Like everyone has a different definition of success, right? Um, and every content creator has talked about you can get tied up with the numbers, and it becomes a big math game at the end of the day, and it can get challenging at times. But I think success for me and the pod would be the type of guests that we get on. It's amazing to see the type of people and the experience that people have in the scene and having them come on the podcast and talk about their experiences. I would have never thought that we would have the type of guests on this podcast. Like if we went back to the beginning of this, I don't think Mike and I would have even imagined the people that came on.
Yeah, no chance. I totally agree. It's crazy to think of how far we've gotten, and that definitely is a big measure of success for me too. What I would say is, whenever we do content, whether it's going to be on YouTube or if it's on Shorts, um, a big thing that I like to see and makes me happy is to see engagement with the community. I like seeing that when we post stuff, and we had ideas from an episode that we had, drafted up, and we had a good episode. Um, we'll go and talk about like, damn, that was really good. We did a really nice job. We were good with our thoughts, and had good ideas. And then it's great to see them when we post this stuff, people resonate with it, whether they agree or disagree with us. I'm like, that was our goal, to get this message out there and to get people talking, whether they're like 100% or they're like, these guys are morons. They don't know what they're talking about. Some guy fires back at him. It's like, that's where I'm like, okay, this is what we kind of want. We want to get the ball rolling and have some conversation about Call of Duty.
You are speaking my language, Mike. Indifference is the real enemy, right?
Mm,
Right. They don't boo when the Sixers come to town. They don't boo the eighth guy off the bench. They boo Embiid, right? So
right.
um if I should probably backtrack here a second. Like you mentioned Dens, for those who don't know, Zach Denyer, former coach of the Boston Breach, now the head Call of Duty coach at Syracuse University. Some other guests in the scene. The Boston Breach Call of Duty team, which they're competing again this year in the CDL. Against all odds, they're still putting out a team this year. Um, I'll ask this for people that are listening here at Endicott who have never listened to your show before, which they should, by the way. But like, what would they expect from a typical episode, and what's your favorite episode to date?
Ooh,
You want to take this one?
yeah, the favorite episode's a tough one, man.
Yeah.
I don't really. I would honestly say, I don't want to bash any of the other guests, but I would say probably the episode with Tyler T Dog. That's definitely one of my favorite episodes. We also did an episode with Alley Cat, who she's one of the
Oh yeah,
commentators
she's
for
one
the
of the main
CDL
casters.
Phase
Yep,
2. Yeah,
she's awesome. Awesome.
that was one that I was really happy with. It's always like you go into them and you're kind of not sure what to expect, and then it happens and it exceeds your expectation. Um, yeah, that those were probably two of my favorite episodes. I'd say though, what you're gonna expect every episode is pretty much going to be what's going on in the Call of Duty game that you're playing. If you're playing the game and you're seeing updates that are happening and things that are going on, like in just the casual realm, like whatever they're doing with the seasons, or if there's been big changes to the game, we'll be talking about that. As well as now, since the CDL starting up, there's a lot of rumors with some teams that haven't been solidified, or we're talking about like the guns that they're going to be using. Um, we've started to be talking a lot about that too. So whether you're like getting into the CDL or you're, pretty seasoned into it and you've been watching it for a while, we have a part of the episode, usually towards the latter half of it, where we discuss that stuff. So we try to cater to both sides, the people who don't care about professional and then the people who like only strictly care about that.
Yeah, and we definitely add our own like personal style to it too. We're always talking about our own personal stories and the games that we played the night before and the ups and downs of our stories.
And that makes it all the more endearing, in my opinion. So people
Because
want to
there's
know
a lot
you,
of
right?
ups and downs when we play, man.
Yeah, definitely a lot.
Yeah. Vulnerability, right? Like, how many times, I don't know, Ben here on likes to pick on me for still doing controller in Fortnite, and I'm like, look, there's no way I'm as talented as you guys. I don't know.
Well, and that's something too I say that we always talk
Yeah,
about a lot on the episodes is, like, we'll have like a slight ego. We know we're good at the game, but we know we're not that good at the game. You know what I mean?
right.
Like there's people out there for sure that listen to us who probably think we're way worse than we are, and then vice versa. It's like how it is in every esport. Everybody thinks they're 1,000 times better than they actually are. Um,
And
so
then you play actually against a professional player and you realize, oh, I'm not actually on that level.
right,
It's a little bit
And,
like the men's league hockey that my dad used to play for 20 years in Gardner. So
right.
right. Yeah. And like another thing I'll add too is that Mike and I were strictly console players. We play on the PS5, and I think that does relate to a lot of people because we know not everyone can afford PCs, and like both of us, we want to switch to PC eventually, but right now it's just not in the realm for both of us, and we've just always grown up as console players.
Yeah.
And there's that console war between consoles and PCs, and we like to relate to both, but we try to relate to everybody that actually has a console and is trying to get into this.
Yeah, I agree with you guys on that. Like, to me, controller, console versus PC is what separates the casual from the like competitive, right? And so, building a college esports program, we've had this conversation before. Like, you need to have equal parts casual and competitive. So it's important for us to have the PS5s out there every day and the Xbox Series X. Because there's a lot of grinders in there, and I think sometimes students walk by and they see how locked in these guys are on the computers. They go, "Oh, is this for me?" No, no, it's for everybody. Just we got to figure that out. But no, it's a very very salient point here. Is it time for lightning round, or I'm gonna call this thunder round because the potential for these to go off the rails is high. Are we ready for thunder round, guys?
Let's do it.
I think
Let's
so.
do it.
Let's
Let's do it. All right. So I'm really curious to see what you guys say on this one because there's been a pattern emerging here so far. What is the worst advice you ever got in your career?
Justin, you go.
You want me to go first? So worst advice that I've gotten in my professional career is how do I word this in a proper way? You have to be in a specific location to be able to network properly. Um, and personally, I have a strong opinion about this, and
Me too.
I, yeah, I don't think what we're doing right now is technically networking, and for some reason, a lot of people think that you need to be in the same location as other people to network and build a stronger connection. And I would disagree with that completely because I mean, Mike and I play video games and we play with a lot of people online. We've met some great people online. We've met them in person and they're great as well. But I think, we have the power of the internet. We have to use that to our advantage and be able to network and meet other people. So I would say that's probably the worst advice I've
I could be
gotten.
doing this from Alaska, right? Who cares?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of hard. I haven't gotten too much in the way of like bad career advice, but I do know one thing that has come up quite a bit is where people, you know, they kind of lose sight of passion and being like, well, you got to focus on like the main things. You got to be able to pay your bills and do all that, which of course I believe is important. But I think a lot of people they get caught up in the rat race of just doing that and they don't ever take a step back and be like, okay, how can I take the things that I actually love and try to turn that into profit or into just a fruitful, enjoyable life? Um, I've seen and met a lot of people, and I know both you guys have too, that don't do that. And then all they do is complain about how awful their life is or whatever it is. And then they give excuses as to why, like, Justin and I, we work both full-time jobs and we still have never missed an episode with this. Then there's plenty of other people that would. But it's just following your passion, and a lot of people lose that. And I think that's like one of the worst mistakes that you can make. I think you need to be involved some way, whether it's profitable or not profitable, in a passion that will keep you going, like just in your career but in life.
So, so the pattern that has emerged here, which you guys broke, but I would ask these questions to the last few guests, and they would say something that their parents told them. So,
Yeah.
Oh, that's a fair one.
yeah, no, to that I would probably say maybe they don't have the solution, but they can at least point out the problem, right? Is that fair?
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Now,
All right,
I want to ask you
yeah.
about that before you go to your next one. How old were your guests that you had that they would say that?
Uh, it varied, like either just a little bit younger than me or a little bit older. So around my age, but like not like Gen Z, like or that stuff. So maybe probably a little bit older than you two, I would say.
Could
Yeah.
be a generational thing.
Maybe,
Could
maybe,
be.
Yeah.
maybe the
I
parents we were that raised our generation were just had the wrong ideas about things, but that were influenced by boomers. I don't know.
Or maybe
So
we just
Yeah.
didn't listen to them. That's
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
they're just here to collect okay boomers, whatever.
right.
Yeah.
I hope no one's listening to that. But so next question: what's an unpopular opinion you have about esports?
You want to go, Mike?
I think that the structure that the CDL has in place, I think is very bad. I think it needs to disappear completely. And I think it needs to go back to what it used to be in
Wow.
the CWL era. I don't think I think franchising obviously is probably going to be the way of the future at some point, but I think what happened is they jumped the gun really early and a lot of people expected to make a return really quickly and they haven't, and that's why we're seeing early in the CDL these people getting paid insane amounts of money, and now they're all the time with these teams you hear them they're taking pay cuts, people complaining about it, people are starting to complain more about the game and like the lack of events. I think that's pretty much what I think about it. I think it's still good to get to watch professional COD, but I think most people would agree that it was better back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just gonna stick to Call of Duty instead of esports as a whole, I would definitely agree with that, and I would say that um, I don't think throwing money. Let's just say this in esports in general. I don't think the solution is to throw money at the wall and hope that money will influence more viewers to come and watch the esport. I think esports right now, we're in such a weird stage, especially Call of Duty. I think we all need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture.
I was going to ask you more about this franchising model later. This is a real that's a really interesting point you make there, Mike. I kind of watching the way that other major esports have gone in more of this I don't know how you want to say more open source, more democratic, uh, city agnostic kind of approach and how that works. And just reflecting on my time with the Boston Breach and how many fans we had from outside of New England, guys. And yeah, we had fans in Omaha. We had fans in Minnesota, right? So, and nothing to do with the Boston and everything to do with the actual branding, I think, because that thing just ripped, man. So,
Right.
um, what's your prediction? What is one prediction you have for the future? And let's stick on COD. What's your prediction for the future of COD?
Um, well, I'll go against what I just said. I don't think it's going to disband. I think we're going to go through rough years like we are
Yeah.
right now. I think that's definitely like we're in the dark ages of the CDL. I think we're not just going to be struggling this year. It's probably going to be next year and then the year after. Um, I would say probably for about, I don't know, if I had to guess, somewhere probably 3 to 4 years of tough times. Um, but I think it's going to be moving towards a light that will eventually more money will come in as esports. And we all know esports is 100% the future. I mean, it's going to just get bigger and bigger. There's really no slowing it down. Um, and I think COD will eventually pick up. They do need to make moves in order for that, to accelerate. But I do think that this model, as time goes on, I think it will work, but it's going to be a tough couple of years before that actually happens, in my opinion.
Yeah, and sticking on COD, I think this whole franchise model, it can work. It just didn't start off the right way. Um, some people might not believe that, and I come from the era of watching COD before, like when it was MLG. Like it wasn't the CDL when Mike and I first started watching. I think the franchise model is very interesting, and I hope it works. And I think it still can work. I think we just started off on a really bad foot again, throwing money at the wall and having all these glamorous ideas. It was amazing, but I don't think everyone looked at the full picture and really mapped out all the outcomes that could have happened. Because I mean, right now, like I think we have one of the best Call of Duties since 2019 when we franchised. And this would have been the perfect COD to start off with that franchise model. But I would say right now it's probably at the lowest, viewership point on like one of the best games that we've had in years.
I'm gonna improvise here on what I showed you here because you mentioned Black Ops 6, and I do want to get into this. Where does this rank all time? You
Ooh.
guys have been talking about it for months. I'm curious,
Mhm.
reflecting on it now, where does this rank all time?
Uh, Me personally, I think it's approaching top five COD for me.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I need to spend more time playing this game, but I would say it's within my top 10. Definitely approaching top five. But in terms of competitive, I think this has been the best competitive game we've had in the CDL franchise.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's because it's up there. I mean, my favorites for sure are like what MW3, Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, World at War, MW2. Those are probably my favorite five CODs. Right now, like I would say, yeah, like we're going with Justin, it's probably 6 or 7 for me. I would put Cold War and this one are fighting for a spot. I loved Cold War. It feels very similar. Um, the only thing holding this game back right now is the maps. That's the only thing I think that kind of took away from this game in a lot of people's eyes. Everything else about it is great. The zombies is great. Campaign we played and talked about it. It's amazing. And then we played ranked last night, and ranks fine too. But the main issue is I say with the maps, and then with some people are seeing it as the hacking issue. Um, we don't really deal with that. As much as other people. I saw like was it Joe Woe? He put some clip out where he was complaining about it's like every other game he's playing has got hackers in it. So our experience differs from them, but yeah, I would say it's 6 or 7 for me.
What is, and this will be the final thunder round question here, but what is one piece of advice you have for students looking to break into the industry?
I will say you need to have a passion of what you're trying to do in the industry and don't lose hope of that passion if you're looking at just the numbers. You you need to love what you do and not worry about, the money or numbers that you're trying to look at because that will get to you mentally. And I don't think that's the best way to measure, you know, success, in my opinion. And you need to be consistent uh, and just know that how much work you're willing to take on and be able to execute that. Like if you're speaking it into existence, that like execute it.
Yeah, I was gonna say with the consistency thing, finding a schedule that works for you. Everybody has their own goals and aspirations as to what they want and how fast they want to get there. But you need to keep in mind that if you're going to be somebody who, you want to be a streamer and you're like, oh, I'm going to be streaming 6 days a week, for 8 hours or something like that. Well, that's great, but one, what are you offering that's going to set you apart from anybody else? Because no one really cares if you're just sitting there playing a video game. You have to bring some to the table. Like we were talking, Brendan, before we started, that guy that's with you who, he's got the accent, he's got the whole
Oh
vibe
yeah.
about him. Like people, they want something to latch on to or find something with them, Um, so you need to have some sort of, charisma or have something about you that people want to listen to and make that your thing. Don't worry so much about the hours because you might, flip flop on that. Find something that works with your schedule and give the people something that you want to offer or that they want to see.
Awesome. So I want to circle back to what we talked about with Black Ops 6 and your high sentiments on that. And I think, can we all agree that the MW2, MW3 reboots did not live up to expectations? Is that fair to say? Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
So I have this kind of ongoing thesis that I teach my students with about nostalgia, in that purest form of nostalgia. It's just a dopamine hit. And like I think if Fortnite OG, if it's Fortnite, like I think if it lasted more than a month, I think people would get tired of it quickly. The one that really drives me crazy is this Hartford Whalers stuff. There's a very small cabal of people in Connecticut that just have such revisionist history. As someone who used to go to those Whalers games as a young kid, when there was like 8,000 people in the rink and they were getting blown out every night, I think there's revisionist history about how much sentiment people had for that. Connecticut is New York or Massachusetts for a reason. And so I think if they were to bring the Whalers back, right, to Hartford, they'd be cool and hip for a month, and then people would go back to forgetting about them and remembering why they were Bruins or Rangers or whatever fans. And so I do wonder if the sentiment for Black Ops 6 coming off the back of what I would call a dopamine hit there of nostalgia that kind of tapered off and had a negative sentiment. I wonder if that played into this at all too, with that.
Yeah. I think it definitely did because
Yeah.
I would say this is the first game we've had, in those 2 years where it is a different game. Um, and Mike and I on the podcast, we've talked about many times about nostalgia and, you know, bringing back remastered maps and things like that, where Mike and I are definitely on the side of please don't remaster all these maps. Like we've played these, you know, over and over and over again. We've played these hundreds, thousands of times. We want something new. And with Black Ops 6, they did that. They added Omni movement. It's a different style game every year. And compared to MW3, like we played the same MW2 maps for the whole year. We did that back in 2009. And we probably put in more time back in 2009 on these maps. So I don't think we want to be spending all of our time that we have now on the same exact maps from back then.
Yeah, nostalgia only goes so far. I don't mind a sprinkling of it. But when you base your whole game or any game for that matter around it and trying to cash in on the people that are in our age demographic, um, yeah, it's very fleeting. So I don't think it's worth it. That's why the last two games honestly were last year in particular was a real flop. And like Justin said, this year it just feels like a breath of fresh air. That's why it's way more fun to play.
Absolutely. I'll ask one more question here, and then I'll let you guys go. But we mentioned about these next few years kind of looking like it's going to take a little bit to get back into the swing of things, at least on the COD scene. Um, I don't know. I think everyone, I think we're all kind of, I guess, tired of hearing the word esports winner ad nauseum at this point, but it is a reality. I think you talk to certain people, they'll tell you that the industry needs to learn how to crawl and walk again, right? And I think we probably should have talked about this more, but there's a whole community aspect of this too that needs to be done. I mean, look at with you guys, and how the Boston Breach put their arm around you guys, recording at their headquarters, kind of giving you guys behind the scenes access, and how embracing people like you helps their community, right? T Dog, who is, people aren't familiar with, is a very popular COD creator. Doesn't have the biggest audience when you look at other, but like his audience is undoubtedly dialed in, right? I mean, his fans are everywhere. And when T Dog would come to our watch parties, he was the show. Not Matthew Judon, not some of these other guys. He was the show. People wanted to see him, right? So, like, what is the path forward? Like, how do we get out of this quote unquote so-called winter?
Yeah, let's talk about this. I like because I like conversation.
Yeah,
I think we need to, obviously everyone talks about creating content. We need the content. And I think right now in the CDL, every team should be doing that, and the players should be attempting to do that. I know there are a lot of competitive players, probably a hot take, they're signed on to be professional players. They're not to post, they don't need to stream, they don't need to do anything else besides be a professional player. I think we're in the very, very early years of the CDL where these players should definitely stream and make content and grow this community because, I mean, again, we don't know where this is going to go. I think that there's a bright future with the CDL, but that's never promised, right? Like these players need to go out, make a bunch of content, and grow their community. And on top of what you said with the Boston Breach, like I mean, I'm wearing a Boston Breach sweatshirt right now, right? Like
yeah, there we go.
they gave us, and helped us so much when we started this podcast. We started during Cold War, and Mike and I specifically said, "Man, wouldn't it be awesome to have a Boston team in Call of Duty and represent our city?" And we finally got one, and we reached out to them and told them about our podcast, and they were so helpful with everything. They let us use their room to create content, and we're always grateful for that. But I think more orgs need to get involved with their community. They need to throw these like watch parties, these events, and uh, Boston Breeze, they did that like all the time during the season.
Yeah, I mean, he's totally right. I agree with everything regarding the teams because the main teams that are in the CDL right now being Optic, Thieves, Toronto, and now what was going to be Cloud9.
Face.
Oh, I had Phase 2. I forgot about Phase. How could I forget about them?
How
Well,
can you?
I
The
know, right?
lightning rod of the CDL.
Like I say, I'll even get rid of Cloud9 and put Phase in that spot as well. Those are the top four teams. One, they've got obviously a lot of money and they got the best players. But they're the teams that are always putting out content, and they're always tweeting and they're always sharing. It's like those are the players that best. And then on other teams, it's the players that have been around for so long that are like these seasoned veterans, like when Clayster was in there last year, people knew of him just because he was a legend and he'd done this 1,000 times over, but did Carolina do any content regarding that team? Very little, to push those guys.
And they barely had their own website, for crying out loud.
Right.
Right.
And that's a story with a lot of these teams, like with this Falcons team coming in. I'm excited for them, but I think they really need to do a lot to get these guys. I couldn't name you one player on that team right now, and it's like through no fault of like those players not being, maybe the best or anything. It's just that, we've got a lot of players that you already remember They need to have that be part of their mission. Push these guys out, make sure that everybody knows who they are. And that's going to take time, but yeah, it's content consistently that will, help bring these teams up. And also too with events, just making sure that these teams are able to put on events and everybody within the US. And I'm glad they're doing an event, doing a major in Spain. Because they
That's going
need
to
to
be
kind of,
fun.
yeah, that's gonna. I know. We wish we were going. That's gonna be a really good event. That's what they need to start doing. People always saying we got to have events in England, we got to have events in Europe, and now they're doing that. And I'm really interested to see how that event goes, to see the turnout.
Let me just add one more question here for the break, because you mentioned about live events, and we've got history coming in February. I think the majors that the Breach put on at MGM Fenway last few years really set a proof of concept, because we have the first ever American Rainbow Six Invitational coming to Boston in February at MGM. The question so if you had 30 seconds to elevator pitch this for someone who's never attended a live esports event, why should they go instead of watching online?
You want to go, Mike? Or do you want me to go?
Oh, I'll go. I mean, the energy is electric. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it rivals honestly going to any sporting event, because when you're at a huge, like, say, Pat's game when they were solid, you go to Gillette and it's like there's a lot of people, but there's a lot of people who don't care. There's a lot of guys bringing their girlfriends or wives or kids who don't care. When you're at an esport event, there ain't one person there who's getting dragged to go to that event. Everybody is there because they're diehard fans of it. Um, and I think that's the biggest sense of it. When you're watching it online, you don't have a real aspect of community other than the chat. But when you're there, you could not know the person to your left or right, and you have so much in common with them. You know all about this sport, and so do they. So it's a big sense of community, and you can also just kind of let loose and be yelling and screaming for your favorite team, and no one's gonna judge you being like, dude, this guy's got to calm down. Everyone's doing the same thing.
Yeah, I'll definitely add to that the energy and community aspect. Like Mike and I were in the stands cheering on the Breach. You look to your left, Breach fans. You look to the right, more Breach fans. And when they're winning around, everyone's standing up, screaming, high fiving. People are drinking if you're legal, and everyone's just having a fantastic time there. The energy is just electric at these events, and if you know you're at home sitting, watching through a monitor, you get those moments. Obviously, like Mike and I will call each other even on the phone and just say, "Oh my God, did you see that?" Uh, but there's nothing like just being surrounded by the same type of people and the same energy at these live events.
Awesome, guys. I feel like this would go on 4 more hours. It's such a fun conversation always with you guys. Before we wrap up, how can people get in touch with you? How can they follow what you guys do?
Yeah,
So you want to go? Or I got it.
we're on we're on everything. At the COD Casuals on X or Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're always tweeting on X or Twitter. I can't call it X. It's Twitter.
Me neither. Don't worry about it.
Um, we're always tweeting on Twitter. We also created a Twitter community, so definitely go join that. That's where we kind of just brain dump everything about Call of Duty, and we talk about other games in there too. So we're on everything.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you. It is always an honor and pleasure to chat with you guys about all things COD. For those of you watching at home, make sure you follow us on YouTube at Endicott Esports, and make sure you subscribe here on Spotify. Again, everything is at Endicott Esports, Instagram, Twitch, you name it. So for Justin and Mike, though, this is Brendan Hall signing off. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Be sure to follow us at Endicott Esports. See you next time.